unfortunately, this morning, we're not going to be having a laugh because we're going to be thinking about what happened last night, which was so horrible. I don't even know where to begin. Charlie Kirk, a right-wing polemicist, I suppose you might say, a bloke who started Turning Point in America, a guy who was, to all intents and purposes, just a very interesting thinker, a very interesting, argumentative type of person, but a man who, bizarrely, amongst many other things, had a family, was 31 years of age, was speaking at Utah yesterday, and had always encouraged people to, debate about whether or not the right was right or whether the left was right, and who had, by complete coincidence, retweeted something that I did only a few weeks ago, has been assassinated, shot dead, by somebody who has yet to be apprehended. We don't know who did it, we don't know why they did it, but we do know that they did it with one shot, and it kind of brings back memories of John F. Kennedy being killed, it brings back memories of Robert F. Kennedy being killed, it brings back memories of Martin Luther King being assassinated, it brings back all sorts of really, really horrible, awful, ghastly things about America and how dangerous America can be. So I'm not going to make any apologies this morning for being rather serious. I'm sorry about that. Poppy Coburn is here from the Telegraph. Poppy, very good morning to you. She met Charlie Kirk, she knows him, she's going to tell us about it. We're going to go live over to Utah and speak to a reporter there to find out what the latest situation is. But it's one of those days where you wake up and you just think, what's wrong with the world? Why can people not just get on with each other without shooting each other, for heaven's sake? It's 5 minutes past 6. I'm Mike Graham. Let's get it on. Obviously, Charlie Kirk was somebody that was known to Donald Trump. There were many pictures of him with Donald Trump, the president. He was very much part of the MAGA movement. He was the young sort of version of it. My own son, who very much follows this kind of thing, was one of those who told me about it, even though I already knew about it, but he alerted me to it. Let's have a look at what Donald Trump had to say.
To my great fellow Americans, I am filled with grief and anger at the heinous assassination of Charlie Kirk on a college campus in Utah. Charlie inspired millions, and tonight, all who knew him and loved him are united in shock and horror. Charlie was a patriot who devoted his life to the cause of open debate and the country that he loved so much, the United States of America. He fought for liberty, democracy, justice, and the American people. He's a martyr for truth and freedom, and there's never been anyone who was so respected by youth. This is a dark moment for America. Charlie Kirk traveled the nation, joyfully engaging with everyone interested in good faith debate. His mission was to bring young people into the political process, which he did better than anybody ever, to share his love of country and to spread the simple words of common sense. Today, because of this heinous act, Charlie's voice has become bigger and grander than ever before, and it's not even close. May God bless his memory, may God watch over his family, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Donald Trump speaking there just a few hours ago. Poppy Coburn's here from the Telegraph. Poppy, very good morning to you. You knew Charlie Kirk. You'd met Charlie Kirk before. This is awful, isn't it? Just horrible.
Yeah, it's just appalling. I mean, it was a very brief meeting during the US inauguration. He's a massive superstar. I mean, I think in the UK we kind of don't realise just how important a figure Charlie was. I don't really think you could get closer to the Trump administration in terms of influence in the last election than maybe Elon Musk.
Right.
So he started out,
millions of followers, right?
Millions of followers. I mean, he started out in 2012. You mentioned Turning Point USA. This was like a college campus group. It was like a conservative free speech group. I mean, in 10 years, there's now 800 chapters. It was a massive galvanising force for the Republican Party to get people out the door. And, it's not just that he's extremely successful. It's not just that he's close to the president. By all accounts, across the political spectrum, He was a really wonderful guy.
Yeah.
You know, he was actually in the UK a couple of weeks ago. He was speaking at the Cambridgenian. And, you know, what the Cambridgenian is like, it's young, relatively liberal students.
Yeah.
But even though, you know, they applauded him, they thought he was fantastic, you know, he was completely holding the room, people coming up to talk to him afterwards. You know, the idea that when he was speaking, again, to a crowd of students, this superstar, this very wealthy, influential man, he still would go on stage at these local college campuses and debate with students. That's what he was doing when he died. He was debating with students. And you know, that's why it's so appalling. You know, he didn't have this massive security crowd around him. You know, he was still going out there and doing the things that made him famous.
Which, as you say, he didn't have to do.
No,
he did it because he wanted to.
Exactly. And the chilling effect that this is going to have on free speech. I mean, if you can't speak to a crowd of students without having bulletproof glass in front of you, which I think a lot of Conservative commentators are going to be thinking now, like, where is now safe? I've got my security guard so no one rushes me on stage. But what if someone is in that building up there with a rifle 200 yards away? I mean, it's just appalling. And that, you know, it's an act of political terrorism. While we don't know
It's chilling, isn't it?
It's chilling. We don't know who's done it. We don't know what the motive is yet. So, you know, we can't speculate on this stuff. But there has also been a really heightened moment of rhetoric around the Republican Party in the US. People calling them fascists, people saying they're a danger to democracy.
And look at, they're doing the same thing here. John McDonnell yesterday came out and likened Nigel Farage to Hitler.
Exactly.
You know, we were both at the Reform Party conference last weekend. And I was amazed at how many security staff Nigel had around him. It was like 8 to 10 people just walking around with him.
Well, do you remember when people used to make jokes about the milkshaking?
Yeah.
People throwing milkshakes at Nigel Farage. You know, he was like, this isn't a laughing matter. This is serious.
Yeah.
Because, of course, he's frightened for his life. And, you know, if you're a politician, particularly if you're on the right, you're going to get threats against your life all the time. And most of the time, of course, it's just some nutter. But I think occasions like what's happened to
But the trouble is the nutters in America have got rifles.
Got rifles, exactly. And I just think it's appalling. And I think it needs to be condemned across the political spectrum, because, you know, this is a man who was 31 years old. He's leaving behind his wife. He's leaving behind his two
young
kids,
children.
Two kids. One has only just turned 1 year old.
But isn't it interesting though? Because I was sort of glued to the TV last night when it happened. It was almost, you know, my bedtime, because I tried to go to bed about 10 o'clock. But I couldn't stop watching it because I couldn't believe the reaction from some aspects of American political kind of, you know, what you might call, you know, sensible people who were literally kind of not condemning it and going, well, he asked for it. You know, he's a right-winger, so therefore this is what happens.
Oh, it's just
you kind
appalling.
of go, what?
It's just appalling. A man's just been shot in the neck, live on video, and they were talking about how he was an agent provocateur, how he was a divisive figure in American politics. And you're like, if you know, for goodness sake, the man at the time was in hospital. You know, he was losing his life as these like commentators are live on TV talking about what a dangerous figure he is. You know, there's no introspection whatsoever. They would never say that about someone on the left.
No.
They would never say that. You know, I don't think if anyone on the right said that, we would all come out and say, how dare you say that?
Of course.
You know, but they think because they're the good people.
It's a horrible, horrible thing. And I mean, funnily enough, his last tweet was about the Ukrainian girl who'd been murdered on the subway train, and you know that's already also caused a lot of division in America, because a lot of people who should know better, frankly, have been saying, oh well, no, it's not racially motivated. You know, a crazed, you know, individual, regardless of his colour, has stabbed her to death. But as he stabbed her to death, he said, you know, I got the white girl. You know. Well, it is a racial thing. Exactly,
and I think you mentioned at the beginning of the show, you know, the assassination of JFK, the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. I think a lot of people are going to be thinking to that period of American history and the kind of political danger that was involved in that, and going, well, Donald Trump was very nearly assassinated last year. You know, if he had not turned his head while speaking at Pennsylvania to a rally during the election, he also would have died. And so I think, you know, we've got to take a step back here and go, you know, what's going on in America? This is a very, very dangerous time.
It really is. Let's go across now to America itself. Caroline Ballard is Assistant News Director at KUER, NPR in Utah. Caroline, very good morning to you.
Good morning, or good evening here.
Thanks for joining us. I know it's probably been a very busy night for you. From what we understand, the assailant, the shooter, is still at large, which is kind of surprising in a way, because normally speaking, you know, the federal agents are pretty good at picking these guys up. But I'm assuming there wasn't that much security at this particular event.
So what we've heard is that there was security. Charlie Kirk came with his own security team, and that there was a police presence at the university or at Utah Valley University. So we know there was some presence there from what we can tell. The shot rang out from, they indicated, from the roof of a building. So that's what we know so far. And as far as people of interest, there were 2 suspects taken in to custody that were questioned and were ultimately released. Neither of them were determined to be the shooter. So yes, still at large, still a manhunt happening in Utah County, south of here.
Right, because we watched last night an individual seems to be being held on the ground by the cops. He looked like a sort of an older white man. He's obviously not the guy, but he was one of the original suspects. So I mean, what sort of speculation, or if not speculation, facts have the police come up with?
So far, not much. We haven't heard much in the way of updates. That was the last thing that we heard, was that the person of interest, I think the first person of interest was named George Zinn. That was the older fellow that you might have seen in some of those photos. The second person was the person they identified in a press conference as having taken in and were questioning. That was Zachariah Qureshi, and they ultimately released them as well. So yes, that's about the latest that we have. As of right now, they have said that they don't believe there is a greater threat to the public here. They feel like this was a targeted act. So the manhunt continues, but all of the shelter in place, all of those sorts of things have been lifted. And of course, we're nearing midnight here in Utah, so you know, who's to say what's happening on the ground down in Utah County right now, but it does still continue, and they're still searching.
Okay, Caroline, thanks very much indeed. Caroline Ballard there, Assistant News Director at KUER at NPR in Utah. Let's have a look. We've got some footage here which is slightly distressing, so be careful if you don't want to watch this, but this is the moment when Charlie Kirk was shot.
Counting or not counting gang violence? Great.
Basically, you hear the shot going out. I mean, there are other pieces of footage which are quite upsetting, which are closer up than that. I'm not going to play those because I don't want people to see them, but I'm sort of in shock, really.
Yeah. I mean, I completely agree.
And I'm never in shock. I'm just not.
Yeah.
But I am today.
Yeah. I mean, I think again, it's the graphic nature. It's when the first reports came out, I remember thinking, I don't believe this. Surely it's fake. I'm sure it's a hoax. And then I did go on social media, and I did unfortunately see the graphic footage. So I would warn people, just be aware that video is circulating. It's just to have a figure. I mean, I've known Charlie Kirk for years. He's so big amongst the younger people on the right in the UK and in the US. He's someone that a lot of people would have grown up with, being like so influential to their political development. To then see his life be taken, again, just doing his job, it's just appalling. And I think it's the right thing that Donald Trump did actually then address the nation about what's happened, because I think many other people will be feeling in that state of shock at the moment and going, like, what on earth is happening to our country? That this sort of thing is apparently becoming normalised. And again, I mentioned Donald Trump was nearly assassinated. There was another figure on the right who was nearly assassinated recently. There are constant attempts of swatting, which is when people call SWAT teams on people they disagree with. And there have been people who actually died from that practice. I think we really need to turn the temperature down because it cannot be normalised or equivocated in any way what's just happened to this person.
And I was talking to somebody just this morning in the office here who said, Farage has got to be careful. But why does he have to be? That's the thing that really upsets me. Why should he have to be careful? Harry Cole, yesterday, who did an amazing job interviewing Peter Mandelson, and we'll talk about Mandelson in a minute because, that is still a massive story as well on the front pages this morning. Here's what Harry Cole had to say last night about Charlie Kirk.
America mourns a patriot, Charlie Kirk, a man who built a movement with words, ideas and conviction, cut down by a coward's bullet. He'd not done anything wrong. He'd not lifted a finger in anger. Yet here he was targeted because he did the best at what he did, giving a voice to millions at once, too afraid to speak out. An assassin's bullet struck him in the throat in the Utah College debate today was a sinister reminder that the enemies of freedom are around us all. It's the ugliest politics since President Trump himself was branded the greatest threat to the order and shot because of it. Is Charlie's death now the natural destination in a world where everyone you disagree with is a Nazi or a racist, or you assassinate a CEO and become an overnight left-wing pin-up?
I mean, it is quite extraordinary, and as I say, I mean, my own, and it's not obviously because of this at all, but he had retweeted something that I did, an interview with Katie Lamb a little while ago about the story about Afghan refugees or Afghan, you know, I don't know, citizens being brought into this country secretly. You know, that story that we had some months ago, or some weeks ago. And he said this, he retweeted the clip of me and Katie Lamb talking on the show, and he said the UK just secretly flew 24,000 Afghans into the country and made it illegal for the press to even cover the story, because they did. And he goes, now it turns out all of them get free housing and welfare for the rest of their lives without ever having to work. Doomed country. And he's right. You know, that's where we are.
Well, also note that he's talking about the freedom of the press. I mean, this is someone that really genuinely cares about freedom of speech. Like that is really what he's most known for, being a free speech activist. You know, I noticed about Harry mentioned the Luigi Mangione, who was the left-wing shooter of a health industry executive in New York, who was being like presented like some kind of pin-up. People were making art of him as a
women were going, oh, how hot is he? Right?
People were making memes about him. You know, this is the outcome of when you glorify political terrorism. Seriously, I mean, it really is that serious. It's not funny. These aren't jokes anymore. These are people's lives, and again, I just feel we've got to focus on this is very, very dangerous time to be a Conservative in America. It really is. And people need to think before they speak.
And we have to be careful it doesn't spread to this country, because things tend to do that, don't they?
Exactly. And I think if you are on the left in the UK, think very carefully about what this lesson that you can take away from this tragic moment really is. You know, let's dial down the rhetoric. You might disagree with someone, okay, but we have free speech in this country still, just about, and we've got to hold on to that, and we've got to preserve it.
And isn't it funny how it's the left who seem to be the ones who want to shut people down? You know, because you and I would be regarded as on the right, I suppose. You know, I'll have anybody in here if they want to talk to me about, you know, whatever their beliefs are, and we can have an argument and we can have a debate about it, as Charlie Kirk would do. You know, but if you're on the left, you want to like expunge people from the room. You want to kick them out. You want to give them no platform. Well,
note the difference, right? Where the right will say like, oh, you know, this person's a muppet. Let's all have a laugh at them. They're wrong. Whereas the left will say this person's dangerous. You know, what you're saying is dangerous. This person's a fascist. This person's a Nazi, and that is not the same thing. Okay, one of those things is taking the mick out of someone, which is a long tradition in this country, and it's a good thing. And the other is you know, it's borderline incitement. When you have so many nutters out there nowadays, and you really do have so many nutters.
There are.
And in America, some of those nutters have access to rifles. It's just appalling. It's
awful. Will Kane, Fox News host, is here paying tribute to Charlie.
As I just mentioned, Charlie Kirk has died at a hospital in Utah. At the risk of sounding repetitive, Charlie Kirk was an incredible man. Charlie Kirk was a good friend, not just to me, for anyone who holds a microphone and anyone involved in politics, anyone he came into contact with. You'll hear it repeated on numerous occasions that Charlie Kirk was my friend. And that doesn't make either any one of us unique. It makes Charlie Kirk unique, because every single one of us would get a text, would get a direct message, would get a call from Charlie, encouraging us, congratulating us, complimenting a conversation or a segment. In a business that is full of ego, in a business that is full of competition, Charlie Kirk was a true friend.
And that's also quite an important point, isn't it? Because there are people on the right, let's not pretend, who are grifters, who do, you know, wind people up, and who do kind of, you know, manufacture arguments and you know, spats for nothing other than their own benefit. You know, and that doesn't make them wrong in particular, but it makes it such a complicated picture, doesn't it?
Well, this again, he was the real deal, and I think is that NPR journalist that you just speaking to, I think pointed out. This was a targeted assassination. This was not random.
Somebody's on a roof, right? That means they put some work into
serious planning,
figuring out where the best angle is. working out where they can shoot them from, and all of that.
Also, the fact that like when he was shot, he was answering questions about free speech. That was literally, he was mid-conversation about free speech. And like, you know, maybe that's a coincidence, but I don't know. I mean, this is someone who's clearly put time into planning their target, when to strike, where to strike. I hope they are found and apprehended very quickly and we can get some answers. Because again, I think a lot of people are going to be very frightened today, even if this person isn't a threat to the wider public. You know, this is clearly a very dangerous and unhinged individual. You know, we just cannot accept stuff like this happening. It's unbelievable. This should not be happening in 2025.
We can't normalise it.
No,
we really can't. Let's have a look at Charlie Kirk talking at the Oxford Union about Britain.
Hello, everybody. It's great to be here tonight. Thank you to the Oxford Union for inviting me. I never went to university. I take that as a great compliment. So therefore, everyone who went to university should be able to run circles around me. You'll be the judge, but I'll do my best. Has Donald Trump gone too far? Well, I can nitpick at how vague that question is. What is too far, exactly? Are his tweets too long? Can all of us even agree on what we're aiming at? I don't think so. The truth is this. If you dislike the West, and if you hate the West's values, if you think the West is evil fundamentally and deserves to be destroyed, then anything Donald Trump does basically short of surrender will be too far for you.
And that is an interesting point as well, isn't it? Because we have reached this kind of peak point of what I would call, you know, sort of undergraduate outrage about the world in which we all live, and they live in it, they benefit from it, they love the things that make life easy for them, but they sort of hate it at the same time because they're so comfortable. I really struggle with that.
Well, I think as well, though, you know, Charlie again, he made his career by talking to people on college campuses, by going to speak to university students, because I think he realised, and he diagnosed before a lot of other people, that was where the free speech crisis was really happening. Like that was where you were starting to see the turn towards liberalism, these kind of cozied up students. He never had their worldview, but you know, I really do recommend people go watch that whole speech. It is fantastic. He is such a good communicator. He actually gets a standing ovation, and again, this is from a group of students who do not really agree with him, the vast majority of him, but because he's just so eloquent. And he's so down to earth. But as he said, he didn't go to college. This is someone who just like, he learned how to speak by actually going out there, talking to people, kind of like honing his craft, going all across America, speaking on liberal campuses, speaking on conservative campuses, going abroad, speaking in the UK, speaking at our universities. You know, and again, I hope this is a bit of a wake-up call. This is what people are fighting for when they fight for free speech. Like this is what it means. He has now unfortunately become a martyr for the cause of free speech, which is again just, it's awful, but that's really what he is, and I hope we can remember him as the brave man that he was, for doing things that very few people have the guts to do nowadays.
And for people who would in some way, I don't know, give a reason as to why he was controversial, because I'd love to hear from anyone who thinks he was. I don't think he was. I don't think that he said anything which wasn't in any way kind of just common sense. I mean, he used the phrase common sense, is what we use here with the home of common sense. You know, he doesn't appear to me to be particularly extreme. He doesn't appear to have said anything which would be considered radical, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, maybe I'm just out of touch. But, you know, for someone to feel so strongly about him that they have to kill him, you can't take it in, really.
Well, I got a text last night when the news was rolling in from a friend of mine who's close within MAGA circles, and he was saying, like, Charlie was the guy who believed in, like, open debate. You know, he was very much, like, within MAGA circles, he was definitely one of the more moderate ones. He was, like, small C conservative. I think a lot of people within MAGA now are not going to be as obliging as him, you know, and they're not going to be as open-minded and wanting to have conversations with leftists and liberals, because they're going to be going like, you people stand for political violence, like why are you guys not condemning political violence? I hope that's not the case, because I don't think that's what Charlie would have wanted.
There were people last night on social media, American sort of, you know, what you might call sort of crazy Democrats, you know, more or less saying he brought it on himself, you know, he blamed, you know, he of course somebody shot him because he was so outrageous. It's like, well, sorry, what world are you living in?
Well, as well, I saw someone saying, oh, well, people don't talk enough about what's happening in Gaza, so why should I care about Charlie Kirk? I mean, what a ridiculous thing to say. What a ridiculous thing to say.
Yeah.
We just see someone be shot in the neck while he was speaking to a crowd of students when his wife and his kids were in the crowd.
Yeah.
And because we didn't immediately bring up all the other suffering that's happening in the world, we're not allowed to mention it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just such a perverse worldview.
It really
it's so
is.
ridiculous.
So ridiculous. Let's do one final clip before we break, because I'm running late. I'm going to get told off. This is what he said himself on what he does best.
I go around universities and have challenging conversations, and because that's what is so important to our country, is to find our disagreements respectfully, because when people stop talking, that's when violence happens.
I've never seen someone do this.
Well, it's a growing trend because people like me are facing violence, assaults, the left. Yes, the campus Antifa. I've been stormed out of restaurants. I've been assaulted publicly, multiple death threats.
Okay, so what's your goal in all this?
There's more people that agree with me than some people would actually believe, and they come out of the woodwork when I do stuff like this. We record all of it so that we put on the internet so people can see these ideas collide. When people stop talking, that's when you get violence. That's when civil war happens, because you start to think the other side is so evil and they lose their humanity.
And, you know, and now he's dead.
Yeah.
Awful. We've got lots more to talk about. It's 29 minutes past 6. Bobby Coburn's here from the Telegraph. Charlie Kirk is dead. Somebody has killed him. He's been assassinated, effectively. He is a victim of the ridiculous culture wars that we are now dealing with every single day, both here and in the United States. And something's got to be done. Surely to God. This is talk. Welcome back to Morning Glory, 6:32. I'm Mike Graham. It is a very sad morning as we discuss what on earth is happening to America and how Charlie Kirk has been assassinated for his own political beliefs and for talking about free speech. But Poppy Coburn's here from the Telegraph. Poppy, some other really, really big stories that we have to talk about as well, including, of course, Peter Mandelson. A lot of the newspapers, probably largely because it happened a bit late for them, are leading on this. Fight on, Mandelson told jailed Epstein. This is an email that was laid bare last night, where it looks as though not only did Peter Mandelson know that he was a convicted paedophile, but he actually told him that, you know, you must fight on because I can't believe you're being persecuted in this terrible way. I mean, it's just the extraordinary stuff. Front page of the Daily Mail. Now Mandelson must be fired. Chorus of cross-party fury as emails show UK's ambassador told Epstein, your friends love you, fight for early release. I mean, it's hard to believe, isn't it? If you're in the front page of the Sun, Mandy's job on the brink, Mandelson on brink over leaked emails with Epstein. I mean, Keir Starmer has got to be the worst judge of character in the history of the world, hasn't he? I
mean, absolutely. I mean, there it is in black and white. We've all seen the photos. We've known for a very long time that Peter Mandelson had some kind of a connection with Jeffrey Epstein, a friendship of some kind. But these emails are just appalling. I mean, there is no way of saying, I didn't know the man's character.
Right.
There's no way of saying, well, it was a long time ago. It doesn't matter if it was 20 years ago.
Right.
You know, you do not send an email to a man who is at that point just being convicted of child sex offences, saying, don't worry, we will back you. I love you. I love you, and I'm staying in your flat in your big townhouse in Manhattan while you're in prison for trying to procure sex from a child. Yeah. You're going to go, what? I mean, we know Mandelson is sort of a good judge of character. I think he's shown that before, but this has got to be the worst one yet. I mean, it really is unacceptable. And you know, I thought his placement in this role in the first place was mad. Again, I mentioned earlier on the show, I was out in the US for the inauguration, and I remember I was at some of the parties and I was talking to the Americans there, and I mentioned Peter Mandelson. I was like, oh, Peter Mandelson's coming in. Oh, yeah. What do you think about that? And they were like, what, the pedo guy? Like, seriously. Guy. And I was like, oh, so that's great. So that's what our closest ally thinks of Peter Mandelson's place. I mean, look, I'm no suggestion that Peter Mandelson's done anything wrong himself, but like we really need someone there in that role, like Karen Pierce, who had a very close friendship with Donald Trump. Who was originally who Trump wanted to stay in the job, right? Yeah, he loves that. I've heard reports that they still call each other actually and talk about UFOs, which is you know, to be a fly on the wall in that conversation. But Peter Mandelson is not popular with Donald Trump. He's a toady. You know, he's been constantly saying that we need to get closer to Donald Trump, but, you know, that's just Mandelson being Mandelson. He's slimy as you like.
And you can see the sort of dynamic between him and Trump, can't you? When he was in the Oval Office, when Starmer was there, and he was sort of standing in the background, sort of rubbing his hands like Uriah Heep. It was kind of like, oh, God, the oil's dripping off him, even as we look at him, you know?
Sneaky Pete. Sneaky Pete, that's what he calls him. You know.
Petey.
Yeah.
He was called by Epstein, right?
You know, Donald Trump rarely gives you a nickname if he likes you. I'll put it that way. It's Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden know it all too well. But, you know, the reports in the Times today that Starmer's refusing to sack Mandelson, I mean, we partly know what that is. That's because there's a state visit next week, and, you know, it's going to be a hell of a scandal if he's not there. But then also I was thinking last night, if he doesn't sack him, every single question from the press is going to be, why is Peter Mandelson, who has connections with the disgraced financier, paedophile Jeffrey Epstein, still in this position?
Because it's not as if, you know, anyone's accusing Peter Mandelson of being a paedophile. It's just he's associated with a man who is convicted as a paedophile. It's as simple as that. So when they refer to him as the pedo guy, that's because it's a kind of it's a nom de plume, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And it's proximity to disgrace and political scandal. And, you know, whenever you become the story, we saw this with Sue Gray, you know, way back when. That feels like ages ago. It was only a year ago.
It does feel like ages ago.
Doesn't it? You know,
the woman who was planning the first 100 days but only lasted 93. Hard to believe.
You know, people said there were no signs that the Labour government was going to fall apart, but that was a big one of them, wasn't it? But she became the story, she became the scandal, and she had to go. I can't see how it's going to be any different.
I can't see it. I mean, do you think they're just holding on to him until Donald Trump comes for his state visit next week, and then somehow he'll be let go? Because if he's let go now, it looks really, really terrible.
Well, that might be their intention, but, you know, Peter Mandelson is not going to go out without a fight. He's been briefing to the Prime Minister, oh, it's going to look really bad if your enemies get another political scalp. You know, you've got to keep me in, you need me, you need my expertise. You know, he's certainly been in the game for a very long time. I mean, how he has survived this many scandals and keeps coming back for more.
It is amazing. Let's have a look at what Keir, because this, see, for me, I think this reflects also really badly on Keir Starmer, because he has given him his full backing without realising that there might be other stuff that comes out in the next 48 hours. Let's have a look at Prime Minister's questions yesterday.
The ambassador has repeatedly expressed his deep regret for his association with him. He's right to do so. I have confidence in him, and he's playing an important role in the UK-US relationship.
Jeffrey Epstein was convicted of child prostitution and sex trafficking that took place between 2002 and 2005. That is the precise period which Lord Mandelson called Jeffrey Epstein his best pal. Absolutely. Was the Prime Minister aware of this intimate relationship when he appointed Lord Mandelson to be our ambassador in Washington?
The ambassador has repeatedly expressed his deep regret. He is right to do so. He's now playing an important part in the US-UK relationship.
So apparently it's okay as long as you express your deep regret that you didn't realise he was a paedophile, that even though he was in prison when you stayed in his house for procuring child prostitutes, you didn't realise that that was a bad thing. I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable. It's quite breathtaking, actually, that Keir Starmer can be this tone deaf, because he's had a pretty bad week, right? Let's not forget, it was only a week ago Monday that he relaunched the parish tool of his, you know, parent project. And then Tuesday he had his first cabinet meeting where he talks about, you know, we're now talking about renewal, we've fixed the foundations and now we're moving on. You know, the guy's either completely deluded or just a massive liar.
Yeah, I think Rachel Reeves' face in that PMQ said it all, really. You know, like, where the hell am I? What is going on? Right. I mean, it's just scandal after scandal after scandal. You know, I never said this before, but, you know, this is the sort of thing you expected from the Tories year 14.
Yeah, right.
When everything was starting to fall apart.
Yeah.
Like, let's not forget, the government has only just come into place. They've only been in power for just over a year. And yet, so he's lost his Deputy Prime Minister and had to hurriedly replace him with David Lammy, who's, I'm sure, going to do a fantastic job in that role.
Very much a cool man's replacement, you have to say.
Quite.
I was saying at the weekend, you imagine the scene of the sort of Admiralty Arch where, you know, Angela Rayner's watching us then pull the £7,000 beds out and move the other, you know, really crappy stuff in for David Lammy. What an awful situation.
Yeah, I mean, he's losing all of his close allies. You know, he nearly seemed to lose his Chancellor. He obviously lost Sue Gray. Mandelson's on the brink. I think Morgan McSweeney, who had quite a close relationship with Mandelson and apparently was like quite heavily involved in him getting that job in the first place, is also slightly on the rocks. He's you know, upset so many people on the left of the party or the centre of the party. Yeah. You know, if he loses those close allies around him, I think it's time to start asking the question, like, can he survive to the end of this
Parliament? I don't think he can. I think that question is being asked, and it has been being asked. I mean, I've been asking it since about last August, and people kept poo-pooing me and saying, no, you don't know what you're talking about. They can't de-seat a sitting Labour politician. There is no mechanism to do so, to get rid of a Labour Prime Minister. Well, guess what? There will be, because people have now realised that he is actually the worst politician and worst Prime Minister that we have ever had. And it's time to get rid of him before he completely destroys the entire country.
Yeah. I mean, I think people usually will say, well, who's going to replace him? Who's going to come up? But surely anyone is going to be better than Keir Starmer. I mean, he's just a rubbish people manager.
He's awful.
He cannot get his own MPs on side. He had to back down on that welfare bill just because he apparently wasn't even calling people. He wasn't talking to them. You know, regardless of the merits of that, and I think that was the right thing to do at the time, if you're not even having communication with the MPs and you've just won them all a job, you've got this massive majority, you're just a bad politician.
Well, people say that, you know, regardless of whether you liked him or not, Tony Blair, even Jeremy Corbyn would go into the sort of the tea room in the House of Commons and sort of mingle with people and talk to them and, you know, chat to them and see what their concerns were, or they walk through the lobby. And he doesn't even do any of that. And so when people say, oh, but he's really not a very good politician, he's a manager, but he's not a good manager either.
He's not a good manager.
He's got nothing really going for him. Let me just read you a couple of these. The one from Damon in Wigan. I'm in shock about the death of Charlie Kirk. I've always told it how it is, and I'm classed as right-wing. However, everyone has the right to discuss things without fear of thinking something's going to happen to me. It's the left who are the threat to the world, not the right. Dan says in Lingfield, the reason the left are getting violent is because they are losing the argument. End of. But I think it's right to say, and I'm not going to say this lightly, people will be waking up this morning. I mean, Jeremy Clarkson's put a tweet out overnight saying, for the first time in my life, I'm scared to be a newspaper columnist. Because suddenly, you know, it's real. There are people out there with guns who want to kill you because they don't agree with you. It's frightening.
It's not hyperbole, you know. I don't think people now agree to disagree. I think the stakes have just been put so high where every little disagreement is now like, it's not just that I disagree with you, I think you're wrong. It's I think you are a bad person, you are a threat, you're a danger. And there are going to be nutters out there. You know, there's a lot of people out there, and a small proportion of them will be insane and will go, OK then, if this person's a threat, then I need to do something about it. And you know, I hope that in the UK we don't have that. I really, really hope that we don't get to that point. But I'm not that optimistic.
No,
anymore.
exactly. I mean, this is the thing. I mean, you write regular columns in the Telegraph. You know, some people might disagree with some of the things you say. Are you supposed to walk out the Telegraph office every night and look around and see whether somebody's going to jump you? I mean, it's awful. This from Steve in Yorkshire. I was watching last night as it happened. I was so shocked and upset. I followed Charlie and loved the debates. He did. It was all about free speech. Thanks for everything you do. And Jess in Dover, this assassination is the end game of cancel culture. There are a lot of people who genuinely believe the end justifies the means. They fail to win the argument. Listen, we're running terribly late. It's coming up to 6:44. I'm Mike Graham. Poppy Coburn is here. We'll be back after this. Welcome back to Morning Glory at 6:46. Poppy Coburn's here from the Telegraph. We're going to have a quick hit with a couple of guests here. Matthew Bartlett, Republican strategist and former State Department appointee, and Roxanne Hoge, who's the chair of the Republican Party in Los Angeles. Matthew, Roxanne, welcome to Morning Glory. Thanks for joining us. It's a very dark day, as Donald Trump has just described it, Matthew. How have we got here? I mean, I know it's a difficult question to answer, but how on earth have we got here?
Yeah, Mike, good morning. From Washington, a town, a country, and arguably an entire political system that has just been shaken to its core. The assassination of Charlie Kirk, as you and Poppy have said, someone who is engaged in civic debate, kind of a Socrates-like figure in American culture and politics, gunned down, silenced, killed for his words and his thoughts. This is an abhorrent act of political violence, of political terrorism that just cannot be tolerated in American society. So it's just a tragic moment right now. How we got here, where we go from here, all critical questions. Right now, I think we are in mourning, and I think we need to realize and recognize that, again, public debate is welcomed. It's a tenet of our American society, the First Amendment, but the political violence is increasingly pervasive in politics, problematic, and needs to be absolutely, utterly condemned.
Of course. Roxanne, I've asked the question already, how did we get here? How do we get out of this situation? How do we fix and heal the nation?
The horrible irony is that how we get out of it is by doing exactly what Charlie Kirk was doing right when he was gunned down. He was engaging people in conversation, and that is the surest path to, by the way, the attack, Matthew, is not just on America, but on Western civilization itself. If we can't have disagreements and discuss with each other, and by the way, very spirited terms, the Oxford debates are always wonderful and passionate and hard fought. But if you cannot do that, then we're in deep trouble. And the left for over a decade has been saying their speech is violence, and also their violence is speech. So that's how we got here. And the only way out of it is for the radical left, AKA the Democrats, but I repeat myself, to completely and totally disavow it, because it's coming from inside their house.
Yeah. And Matthew, in terms of the chilling effect that this will have on free speech, I mean, will it frighten people into not going out there and joining the crowd, or will it stop people from organising debates and going out into the public sphere?
You know, Mike, I think that is the intent, very sadly, but I believe that, as just mentioned, no. How do you answer that? How do you answer madness with soundness, with continuing to engage in those debates with logic, with reason, to make an argument but not get into an argument, and that now is the time where, again, 2 attempts on Donald Trump's life. We've seen this too many times, and there needs to be just a rejection. Happy to see leaders from both parties, all living presidents, making comments today, again, celebrating the life and the rights of Charlie Kirk, and really deploring this murder, this political violence, this political terrorism. We are now, on the anniversary of 9/11, where again terrorism struck. Was meant to drive fear and to stop people from living a free life in a free and open society. You would hope that once again our country will continue to affirm what is right and renounce what is wrong.
Matthew, thank you very much indeed. Roxanne, just a final word from you. It is the anniversary of 9/11. It's hard to believe that, all these years later, we're still suffering from terrorism, but on our own shores, indeed.
I think because I live here behind the blue curtain in Los Angeles, California, I hate to inform you, but I, even as the chairman of the local Republican Party, I can't have a Republican bumper sticker on my car. It's not been safe for people on the right to express themselves for a very, very long time. And while it's nice to have those words from Obama and other leaders of the Democrat Party, they ring hollow for me, because they're the ones who told people, Maxine Waters, if you see people in a restaurant, don't let them eat in peace, get in their faces. There's been a lot of soul searching that has to happen on the left.
Of course. Roxanne, listen, we're all thinking about you. Thank you very much indeed. Thinking about America and thinking about what needs to be done to fix it. Poppy, we've had the same thing here, haven't we? We had the Labour government or Labour Party apparatchiks talking about, don't let Tories enjoy themselves, don't let them walk amongst us, disrupt them wherever they go, get in their faces. I mean, it's a horrible thing.
Yeah, it's also completely pathetic.
Yeah.
These are people who want to try and, LARP as being like anti-fascist, brave campaigners. They're not being brave. It's actually the easiest thing to do in the world, to punch right. It's totally easy to do so, particularly if you're in left-wing spaces. And again, what's happened to Charlie Kirk is just yet another tragic reminder that these words have consequences.
Yeah.
They really, really do. I am the biggest free speech advocate going. I don't want to censor anyone. I don't want to shut down anyone, regardless of what they say. But people do need to be aware that if you create an environment where you point to some section of society and you say you are the enemy, you are dangerous, you are not like me, that can have some consequences. And so just to be aware. And I think in the US it's even unfortunately further along. The polarisation there is so deep. That people can't dive across the divide, they can't even have a basic conversation about politics. I really hope the UK doesn't come in that direction, but look at how people talk about reform.
I know.
Well,
like I say, John McDonnell yesterday likening Nigel Farage to Hitler.
It's ridiculous. I mean, that is ridiculous.
It's laughable, but not laughable this morning because of what happened yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you've just got to go to these people and remind them that their words do have consequences, and they're not speaking in a vacuum. Because it's just completely wrong. It's ridiculous to say that about Charlie Kirk. It's ridiculous to say that about Nigel Farage. These are public spirited people who believe in free debate. If that's something that we're attacking people for now, then we're screwed.
I know, absolutely. Poppy, stay where you are. We're almost out of the hour, but it's 6:53. We've got to talk about Prince Harry yet, who went and saw his dad yesterday for the first time in several months. We'll bring you more on that coming next. A very good morning to you, 6:57. It is, of course, Talk, the home of common sense. We've been talking about the death of Charlie Kirk, the assassination of Charlie Kirk. We'll keep going with that throughout the course of the show. Poppy Coburn's here from Telegraph. Poppy, just before the end of the hour, the other big story on the front pages today, lots of really, really big stories, is, of course, Prince Harry. Harry's tea with the King on the front page of The Sun. Royals reunite for the first time in 19 months. You forget how long that is. It's like, a year and a half since he saw his dad, who's suffering from cancer. A bit of a dramatic moment yesterday afternoon when he was spotted going into Clarence House. Does it mean that everything's all right now?
Well, it was a very brief meeting. The Daily Mail saying it was 54 minutes exactly. They caught up over a cup of tea. I think when you've got 6 years of recrimination and hurt, it's pretty difficult to deal with that in under an hour. I think it's a good thing that they're meeting up again. Last time he was there, obviously, it was with tragic news because the King announced that he had had and he'd flown back from LA. Is that enough to actually heal the rift in the family? I think, unfortunately, not.
No.
But I still think it's a good thing, even regardless of what your views are on Prince Harry. That's his dad, and he's got to have a good relationship with his dad. It is good to see that they're meeting, but again, they're very brief.
Yes. The elephant in the room, of course, or rather not in the room, is Meghan Markle.
Yes.
And I imagine that that's always going to be difficult. I mean, as I'm sure you occasionally have rows with your parents, and mine are both passed away now. But, whenever there was an issue, you'd kind of go, should we go and have a drink? And you go, OK, then. Yeah. And it would always be a bit tricky. But, I mean, there was never anything as bad as this.
No.
I can't imagine you could probably cut the atmosphere with a knife.
Well, absolutely. I mean, as well, you're literally the king. Yeah. Everyone's kind of watching you. Everyone's kind of looking over you. You've got this packed schedule.
Right.
And, I guess it's not easy to have a relationship if you're living in LA. That was obviously a choice of Harry. He did decide to do that because they'd had that major falling out. Doesn't seem to be much news that he's got a relationship with William either.
No.
That still seems to be very full.
Is a long way away from meeting him.
Yes. Yeah. And, I think it's probably quite difficult because, he broke the omerta, he obviously wrote that memoir, Spare, where you kind of rake over the coals, the family dramas, and, it's not easy, but I hope for the King's sake that they can have a relationship.
And as Jeremy Kyle said yesterday, let's hope that as much as we probably would like to know what happened, maybe Harry could do well not to actually reveal it to NBC as soon as he gets off the plane in New York.